strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ? Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal? If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in.
Thanks to those joining me live, and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. Tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis Prograis. I'd love, that sounds like a...
Old, I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then...
That would say, what do you mean by active black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now, and he ain't gonna fight. I bet you anything, he's not gonna fight somebody as good as John Ryder.
All right, we are back. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Roundtable. We have another all-star panel as usual, being joined by my partner in crime, D-Style Boxing. All the way from down under, we got Lyndon back joining us, and we got UK's finest, Base the Kid is with us as well. Big news today. You know we got to kick it off with this one. Not only Coppinger's saying this, but Keith Idec is saying this. And when Keith Idec pulls the trigger, I feel pretty good about his story because he's pretty much on point. Cappinger, I don't know. But Canelo Alvarez on his Instagram did a story, posted it. September, he's returning with PBC. And it's likely, according to reports from Coppinger and Idec, to be Charlo. But we don't know that. Still, Benavidez could still sneak in the back door because that fight with Morrell is not signed yet. So what do you think of this, D-Style? Is this a good move? Is it for 3 fights? Is it for 2 fights? Is this exaggerated? Break this down.
Well, ESPN, although it is through Coppinger, did say it's a 3-fight deal. Since Canelo's confirming he's going to be returning with PBC, I would find it to be a stretch for even Coppinger to be completely lying about it being a 3-fight deal. So I'm going to lean towards more likely it is a 3-fight deal. Canelo has pretty much cleared out the Matchroom stable at this point. He's pretty much cleared out a lot of what Eddie Hearn could possibly offer him. All there was that Bivol fight, and I felt Bivol was playing his hand just a little too aggressive, quite frankly. I get that you won the fight, but Bivol needed to understand that there was not a lot of high demand for the fight. Most people were telling Canelo to move on, so he was not under a lot of pressure to rematch you, and you got a little too aggressive about it, in my opinion. So now Canelo's going to move on at this point, and most feel it's the right decision. Although Canelo will have to be held a little bit to his word. He said he wanted that revenge and he didn't get it, but maybe he'll revisit that down the line. As far as the deal, I think it's going to work for Canelo. I think one big component as to why he decided to go with PBC is, like I said, that they have fresh crop of talent for him to fight. He's already cleared out the Matchroom stable, as I mentioned. He's a free agent. He's able to do that. And here's the other thing. The same reason Ryan wants out. I don't think the Canelo side is very happy with the pay-per-view process that the Zone has. It's very unreliable. It doesn't work at times. I purchased myself personally a pay-per-view from the Zone, and it didn't work. And I had to order it on Showtime and pay double for it. And I still have not received a refund for it. I'm not the only one that's gone through that. There was no customer service. There was no one around to deal with the situation. And sometimes you get what you pay for, right? That's a gripe Ryan has, saying, look, I lost a lot of pay-per-view revenue because your shit ain't working. I could see Canelo. I'm not saying it's a one reason, but it could be one reason why he said, okay, you know what? You guys need to get your shit in order. You know what I mean? Because I cannot have people saying, I want to buy your fight, but I don't want to take the risk because if it doesn't work, then what the hell do I do, right? Where I think he feels more confident with mainly the Showtime brand supplying his pay-per-view. But most importantly, I'm pretty sure he was offered something big. I said this from the beginning. If he's going to talk to anybody from PBC, he's going to talk to the head honcho. He's going to talk to Al Heyman. He wasn't going to talk to Sin. He wasn't going to talk to Benavidez's, manager and representative, and that's he's going to go directly to the head dude, the big fish over there. Okay, he went to the head honcho and he said, "What's up? What you got for me? My name is Canelo Alvarez. What you got?" Right? And he made a deal. Obviously, Canelo liked it, and he took the deal. As a fight fan, I personally don't care where he fights, as long as I'm getting good fights. I'm going to be a Debbie Downer here. I have to be honest. I don't like the Charlo fight. All right? We cannot have a guy that held the whole division hostage, and now he's going to come back, not even fighting that division, by the way, move up for the first time at 168, and just like that, he wins a lottery ticket. Just like that, the dude gets a nice scratch off, and it says Canelo 3 times, and you get rewarded. The sport of boxing is going to reward a dude that hasn't done anything for over 700 days. Right? And I'm not happy about it. I'm just not. There's a lot of fighters out there that have been doing the business. David Benavidez is one of them, quite frankly. Okay, just beat Plan a couple months ago. Okay, we cannot be saying things that who has Benavidez beat. Look at his resume. It isn't all that. Yet you're going to fight a guy that's coming off a 2-year layoff. If the reports are true, I don't like the fight. I just got to be honest with you. But if it's a 3-fight deal, I'll take it, because that means more than likely we'll get that Benavidez fight next year.
Lyndon, please help me out here. Be the voice of reason. Do you like the Charlo fight? Is it a bad fight?
I do like the fight. However, it's probably the timing is probably the main thing. As D-Style said, it's been 2 years. I really like the fight on paper. Canelo versus Charlo. I think it's a great fight. But as you said there, 2 years is a long time. How do you build up the credibility of it all? Look, I do it with the signing with PBC, if it is the case. I don't mind it. I think Canelo, this is the beauty of being a superstar like he is. I think he's got options. He can jump from promoter to promoter. He's a free agent. I really like it. Like D-Style said, he's cleaned out the Matchroom side of things. So I don't mind it. I think if you go to a whole new organization, a whole new batch of fighters to fight, I don't mind it. And as I said, I think it's the luxury of being a superstar like he is. I don't subscribe, and I never have, that fighters like Canelo duck certain fighters. I think there's business decisions made about when and where you fight these guys, so I don't really subscribe to that. But I just think Canelo is a good operator, very similar to a Mayweather type of figure, very smart, or the people around him are very smart, more importantly, and they're giving him the right fights at the right time, moving him up and down as it suits them, and that's the luxury of being who he is. So I've got no dramas with it. I'm actually looking forward to what this PBC deal means and what more exciting fights we can get from Canelo. Now, whether it's Charlo or not, it looks like it's going to be, but let's see. And let's hope maybe the Benavidez fight is after that, if a deal can be made. But I don't mind it. I think it's good for Canelo and good for boxing.
Base, was the writing on the wall? Was this inevitable? Was the Matchroom stable kind of cleaned out for Canelo and he just had nowhere else to go? Did this deal just make the most sense?
Well, I haven't seen the report, to be honest, so I can't really give an accurate assessment on that. But I mean, look, if he's got no one over there, Eddie's got no one for him to fight, or there's no one that appeals to him anymore, then fair enough. The interesting thing D-Style said was obviously about the DAZN pay-per-view issue on your side of the waters, because obviously that didn't happen over here. We never had those problems, and that would be a very that would be a very adverse thing for you to be thinking about when making your deal. Like, do I, can my supporters buy this? Like, will there be issues? Will they not want to buy it in the future because of that? That's a very interesting thing. Me personally, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of PBC, but if he wants to go over there and clean out their roster of stars or frauds or whatever, that's fine on one sense. But it's going to be an issue for me because PBC has no UK right still. So there's no guarantee that his fights will get shown over here or where they'll be shown or what platform and at what price. So that would be a bit of an issue on this side of the waters. But in terms of him, like, yeah, if he needs to, if he wants to go over there and take on a Charlo, a Morrell, a Benavidez, something like that, or maybe even other stars, they'll probably conjure up some other people for him to fight in between. And you know, the Benavidez fight will definitely be sort of the last one in that pack. They're gonna wait for Canelo to be as far along in the game as possible before that fight ends up happening. So, I mean, the Charlo thing 2 years out, not great to be totally honest, but yeah, it's I mean, if anyone's allowed the gimmies at this point in time, it's Canelo. If people want to pay for a gimme like that, so be it.
So you don't think BT or Sky or even you guys can't buy pay-per-view on like fighttv.com on the internet? You can't buy fights
We
like
can,
that?
but the point is, when he was on the Zone, it was a part of our subscription, so it was free. So if we go on Fight, then we now have to pay sort of 20 pounds, 30 pounds, whatever it might be. That's not obviously going to affect you lot, but when we get the fights for free, it's just a different avenue. And if it's BT or if it's Sky, they're definitely going to try and put it on pay-per-view as well, because they're unscrupulous like that.
So I had to pay for the Ryder fight, but you got the Ryder fight free over there in the UK?
That's correct, yeah.
What a crappy deal that was.
Because Canelo is a pay-per-view fighter on your side of the pond regardless.
That makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
The only one we ever had to pay for from the Zone was
Golovkin?
the Golovkin 3. And they decided that, yeah, because of the time zone, it wasn't sensible to make it pay-per-view. So
Gotcha.
if so, there's ones that you guys will get for free because it will be early afternoon for you that we'd have to pay for. It's just that's how they work it.
Okay. All right, let's get into this past weekend. We had Regis Prograis make his Matchroom debut against Danielito Zorilla. And I got to be honest, this was a kind of a surprise to me. This was more competitive than I thought it would be. I was a little bit shocked, to be honest, that Regis Prograis was having this much problems in the fight. I know Devin Haney has been chomping at the bit, kind of nipping at Regis Prograis' heels. He's talked to Eddie Hearn, and that could be a likely potential fight next. So based off of what you saw on Saturday, how do you think that fight shapes up and plays out? We'll start with you, Lyndon.
Yeah, no, I think look, obviously it wasn't a very impressive performance by Prograis. It was quite disappointing, actually. And look, I must admit, I've never been a massive fan of Prograis as far as being at the upper echelon. I think guys like Haney and Davis or Taylor obviously beat him. So I'm not a big rap for him. I think it's pretty bold for him to be, talking a little bit of smack about Haney and all the rest of it. I think Haney deserves a little bit more respect than that, especially after the performance that Prograis put in on Sunday. But for me, Haney wins that fight comfortably. I mean, there's probably some other good fights out there for Prograis, but he didn't really enlighten himself on the weekend. I just don't think at this stage he deserves a fight with Haney, who's more than deserved it. And I just think if, regardless of what you think of the decision with Lomachenko, Southpaw versus Prograis Southpaw, I think that you'd find Haney would find Prograis a lot easier to handle than what Lomachenko was. So, yeah, it's not a big fight on the agenda for me. I think Haney wins that fight quite comfortably.
Gotcha. So, Base, we did see Prograis have problems dealing with the range and the length of Zorilla. He had a hard time gauging his distance. And we do know that Devin Haney is a master at fighting on the outside. He's really good at moving. Do you think style-wise this could be a problem for Prograis?
Oh, 100%. And as I said, like Haney, regardless of whether it was a close fight with Loma, of course, but if Haney can handle Loma, I'm sure he's got no dramas handling Prograis being the southpaw. And I don't think he's not overly quick. Lomachenko was lightning quick, obviously, but Prograis not quick. I know he said that Zorilla ran from him the other night and really didn't give him a chance to shine. But if you look at the fight closely, he didn't run. He just fought a cautious fight. It wasn't like he was fighting too negatively. He did engage. He's not really a big puncher either, Zorilla. And I just thought he was there for the taking. And Prograis just for one reason or another couldn't handle it. And if he struggled with someone like him, I don't think he's got any chance whatsoever against a class act like Devin Haney.
Oh, Lyndon answered for me, so
yeah, that's okay. I'll go. We'll go right to you, Base, and I want to kind of add to that question since he kind of extrapolated a little bit more. One thing that was troubling to me, right, was the things that Prograis said after the fight, like he was a little bit nervous. Eddie Hearn also said that, you know, both guys landed big shots, and maybe that kind of changed the trajectory of the fight because of that. But we've seen Devin Haney, you know, have to go to Australia. We've seen Devin Haney, even the Lomachenko fight, get caught with big shots, and he came back and you know, he held his square, right? He didn't waver. So Devin Haney, even at his young age, showed grit. Now, obviously, we don't want to, you know, just all of a sudden throw Prograis to the wolves here. We want to see him again because we haven't seen a pattern of this. But based off of these two performances from, you know, Haney and Lomachenko in this fight, what do you think, Base? I mean, has this changed your mind a little bit about the fight?
I mean, to be totally honest, when the fight initially was spoken about, I thought, oh, the fact that Devin, especially when he was on Twitter saying, look, I'm the one that called you, I'm the one that called Eddie about the fight, not the other way around. I said, okay, so he's seen something there. And then having looked at that fight, because obviously I've seen others from Prograis, and Prograis, not necessarily a counter puncher, but he needs someone who's almost going to be in front of him to see the best of him. He's never been the greatest, as he said, like cutting the ring off or chasing someone. Now, Haney, I don't think is going to necessarily do what Zorilla did, because that's not Haney's style. He will kind of stay within range and just sort of land. But the thing with him, because he's economic with his shots a lot of time, he's not going to be there throwing combinations in the pocket or taking unnecessary chances. It'll be like 1 or 2 shots at a time, angle off, get out, get back in, ambush, you know, move to the side, jab, you get too close, hold, tie up, resets, go again. Now, Prograis will probably have speed, the power and size advantage, so I doubt he's going to want to be in the clinch too much. But Haney is he's a big guy. Whether he's got the punch power at 135, I think at 140 it would be enough, because I think even Prograis said in an interview, like, he reckons Devin's probably got like Mayweather type power, whereby you're not just going to walk in. It's respectable enough that you ain't going to walk in, but it's just not one punch knockout. So I think he'll probably be wary of that. And obviously the one thing that Haney, or happened with him and Lomachenko is much faster than Regis Prograis and a lot more graceful on his feet. But the fact that Haney was able to turn with him for the majority of their fight, only really 2 rounds did he struggle with that. I think he'll be able to turn with Prograis, and if Prograis can't get the necessary openings, the same thing that happened with Zorilla, which, you know, made it a very, even though, you know, people said that he won, a lot of people said that Zorilla actually won that, was outlanding, you know, and there's a whole round in the second round where Prograis literally didn't land a single punch on Zorilla. He got given the round on 2 judges' scorecards, but he literally didn't land 1 punch the entire round. So, yeah, it's definitely feasible to me that Devin Haney can actually win that fight, and win it fairly comprehensively. And as Lyndon has said, and what you said, Joe, is one thing that you can say about Haney is he hasn't shown to be flustered or nervous. Well, maybe you might say he was nervous in the weigh-in for Lomachenko. People say that potentially, but that didn't necessarily translate in the ring. He's able to stick to a game plan. He's able to adjust his game plan if need be. Him and his father seem fairly good at that. Obviously, Ben Davison seems to have some form of decent credibility within their stable as well. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fight that Haney can win. And look, one bad performance or one bad style clash can mean something, but maybe it doesn't mean anything at all. So at the end of the day, it will still be a great fight to watch. But I've been always pretty high on Devin Haney and his skill. I don't think he gets enough credit, and I do think that would be a very risky fight for Regis Prograis.
Gotcha. So D-Style, we talked about this, when Teofimo Lopez had some shaky performances, but then obviously came back against Josh Taylor. Now, this is one fight. Are we jumping the gun with Prograis, or some people jumping the gun with Prograis?
What do you
think of this fight?
I want everybody to listen to me right now. That's not an easy fight for Devin Haney, by far. Haney can land jabs on southpaws. He had an abysmal. Loma, I get it. Loma's a great boxer. Okay, what happened with JoJo? Little ass JoJo, he couldn't. And JoJo don't hit nowhere near as hard as Prograis, and I don't see him much. Prograis probably faster than JoJo. So all I know is this: he has a hard time landing jabs on southpaws. He has a hard time with that angle. Haney likes to fight out of that shell. You cannot do that against southpaw. That's the reason he has problems with that. At least with Loma, he got away from that, which was smart, by the way. But he has issues with southpaws, bro. Like, it's happened twice. And even if you rule out Loma, okay, I get it. Loma's different these style. Loma's Loma. Okay, well, JoJo is JoJo. Right, no offense to JoJo, but good fighter, right? But I felt Gary Russell beat him way more clearly than Haney did. I thought that fight was a lot closer than people thought it was. It's just my opinion. I think JoJo did fairly well against him. I don't think he won the Lomachenko fight. And here's another thing. Zorilla, I mean, I'm not saying he's like he has a hammer as a fist or nothing, but he hits a lot harder than Haney. I'll say that. He could walk through Haney's punches, all right? I know Haney could have knocked out Gamboa. Has been knocked down like 14, 15 times in his whole career, probably more than that. Stopped several times. He couldn't stop him. He couldn't stop Linares, who was coming off a not that far from a first-round knockout by Cesar Pablo Cano, knocked Spark out, and he was eating everything Haney was giving him. Stylistically, right? Can Prograis fight how he fought Zorilla and beat Haney now, right? He's not going to be able to wait and outbox Haney from that range. That's not going to happen. What he does need to do is bring back the old Prograis. I kept hearing the commentators talk about, we were talking to Prograis, and he told us after the Taylor fight he wanted to box smarter and not be as much of a slugger. It's time to bring back the old Rougarou. It's time to get more aggressive, right? And the way you beat Haney, look, man, I promise you, Prograis, you could do 3 versus 1 in the punch count against him, and it's going to benefit you. I think Haney will look great for the first half, and then that second half will be very interesting. I think he had a flat performance. I think he was nervous. He was open about that, right? He didn't look good in the Zorilla fight. I'm not excusing the performance. Neither is he, by the way, right? But he said all the right things, man. He said, look, I didn't look good. He owned up to it. And that's all I need to hear from a fighter. You cannot correct a problem unless you acknowledge it, right? He looked, and I don't buy this whole, it's the age. He's not that old, and he looked great against Zepeda just a couple of months ago, right? Yeah. Maybe a few months ago, right? But nonetheless, I'm actually picking Prograis in that fight if they fight.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you who you got.
You got Prograis.
Yeah. Okay, so it was just a kind of a one-off situation for Prograis, and your opinion that you had going in hasn't changed.
Everybody, look at Teofimo. He didn't look that good against Martin. Oh my God, look! I'm telling you, man. Like, it's hard when you're fighting somebody that their game plan is to fence you and not really fight you. Then there's a problem. Now I get that Haney could do that too, but at the end of the day, I just think Prograis from that southpaw stance is going to give Haney a lot of problems.
Okay, so let's take it back to another fight this past weekend. Tszyu just blasted out Carlos Ocampo in a phenomenal performance. Did something that only I think Errol Spence did, and he did it probably arguably more impressively than Errol Spence did it. And Tszyu, to me, just continues to seem to look better and better with each fight. And I remember a year ago when a lot of people were talking about this potential undisputed fight with Jermell Charlo. Not many people were picking Tszyu, but I'm seeing a lot of buzz around Tszyu right now. A lot of people kind of giving a second look to this guy and saying, you know, there's more than meets the eye to this gentleman, right? After the Gaethje fight, that's what sold me. And, you know, I after that said, I think he could beat Charlo. And I stand by that now. So I got to ask you, D-Style, after this, you know, with Charlo being inactive and Tszyu just being active and continue to impress, should he be favored, or would you even favor him now? And do you think other people will favor him over Charlo now? Do you think the pendulum has swung?
Well, I was picking Tszyu after the Gaethje fight. So what do you think? What do you think of my answers now?
I think you're on point with me.
Right. So here's the thing people need to realize. Okay, I have a lot of respect for Jermell Charlo. He's a great champion, undisputed champion. He deserves all the respect in the world. I get that, right? But he's not exactly this unbeatable dude. He's not this special fighter either, like a Mayweather or something like that. He's not, I don't even put him up there like with the Spence Crawford, quite frankly. Good fighter, okay, fought the best available, but it took him 2 cracks against Harrison. To his credit, he won the rematch. He knocked him out. In my opinion, lost the first Cassano fight, but to his credit, in the rematch, he did good, right? Okay, cool. Good champion. I'm not, and he could win a fight against, I think it's a really close on paper 50-50 fight, so I'm not ruling him out either, right? But here's, first of all, about this fight really quick. On the lead up to the fight, I kept saying, man, look, Ocampo's a tough dude. He's going to have to break him down, work the body, like you ain't going to knock out Ocampo with headshots, right? What does he do? He goes out there and ethers him with 2 headshots and puts him out. Like, you know, I'm just like, okay, wow, okay, that's that, right? Tszyu has proven he could finish a fight in any round from 1 through 12, okay? Tszyu can knock you out with a 1 punch. He can wear you down throughout the fight. He can systematically break you down. He can work the body. If you try to clinch him the way Jeff Horn did, it ain't going to work. He's very strong. I mean, he's got it all almost. Like, I'm just saying, very versatile fighter. I know what I'm seeing. And I'm telling you right now, and people need to, like, and by the way, I'm not saying Tszyu is this unbeatable fighter either. That's what makes the fight amazing. I'm looking forward to this fight. What I'm saying is that he's versatile. He's dangerous in round 1, as he proved in this fight. And he could also take you out late, like he proved in the Harrison fight. Okay? This guy is a problem, and he's got an engine. I never in my life seen Tszyu tired in a fight. I haven't seen it. I have not seen him tired. All right? So that is a problem. Jermell, very low output. Takes too many breaks in between. Good puncher, but guess what? Tszyu could punch too. So you're both going to be a threat to each other, right? But in between all that, who's going to be outworking who? And I think Tszyu's a better inside fighter than Jermell, quite frankly. Right? Like, it's just that's just what I'm saying. That's just my opinion. And I talked to you about this, Joe. He proved that to me in the Gaethje fight. And all people kept talking about after the Gaethje fight, oh, look, he got knocked down. Let me tell you something. Ali got knocked down against Cooper before his fight with Liston. What stood out was not the fact that he got knocked down, that he got back up. That's what stood out, right? Now, granted, Dundee cut the gloves, but that's a different story. Okay, we're not going to bring that up. But, all right. But with that said, he didn't need the gloves cut, though. He got right back up, and what did he do? He went up to whoop his ass for the rest of the fight. That's what he did, all right? From that point on, he just whooped Gaethje's ass. That's what he did in that fight. Like, and Gaethje is just not a fighter you do that to. Is what people need to understand. Gaethje's a really good fighter. He looked really good in his last fight, right? So that was enough for me. The Harrison fight was just for everybody else. Like he's going to destroy Harrison. In my opinion, that's how I saw it coming in. And what does he do? He beats Harrison better than I thought he was going to be. I thought Harrison was going to give him a tough fight for 4 or 5 rounds. I thought Tszyu was going to have to get back in the fight mid-rounds and take him out late. That's not what happened. After round one, he just went up and he did what? What have I been saying? He whooped his ass. That's what he did for the rest of the fight. Tszyu is a problem. He's a problem for Charlo. If you're a Charlo fan, you should be nervous, okay? Because Tszyu's coming, and Tszyu wants that fight. Tszyu's practically like doing everything possible to make this fight happen, all right? He's done everything but take grapes to the guy, okay? Like he's done everything to try to make this fight happen, all right? Everything but make his coffee in the morning, all right? He's done everything. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I know what people are thinking. I know you're thinking, Habib. I don't want to hear Jermell moving up to fight Adames. I don't want to hear that he's going to get a hand-me-down WBC belt with his brother. He needs to see Tszyu. You do not make a man wait over a year to fight you to just move on. That would be a bad move, a really bad move. And I don't use this word often, but if you move up division, that's a duck because he's done everything to accommodate you. Everything. And I don't want to hear the people tell me, oh, don't say it's a duck if he does it, right? Now, I believe that Jermell's going to fight him because he's proven to be, his reputation has proven to me that he is a fighting champion and that he's going to take this fight because I don't believe his pride is going to allow him to move up a division because he ain't going to be able to go anywhere, bro. He ain't going to be able. He's going to go to McDonald's, order a Big Mac. They're going to call him out for not fighting Tszyu. They're going to recognize that voice when he's ordering in the drive-thru. Okay. He ain't going to be able to go to the counter anymore. He's going to have to do drive-thru order, or he's going to have to get Uber Eats at this point because he ain't going to be able to show his face anywhere. Jermell better fight Tszyu. All right, he better fight him. I'm telling you right now. And if you're still not a believer in Tim, well, I don't even know what to tell you. Well, one last thing. Tszyu is everything because he's the son of the legend Tszyu. We all know that, right? Tszyu is what Mexican fight fans wanted Chavez Jr. to be. Okay? That's what we wanted from Chavez. And it's not the winning, by the way. It's the hard work, the dedication to his craft that Chavez Jr. never showed. All right? I just wanted to throw that out there. That's all I got.
All right. Shout out to Coach Malachi. True Media Today, USA Boxing says, keep up the good work, guys. Fire. Thank you so much, Coach. And you as well, keep up the good work. You do great work over there, over on your channel as well. So thanks for stopping by. All right, Lyndon. Again, I know there may be some bias. But I think that even objective people can kind of see now that Tszyu's the real deal. How do you think this situation plays out with Charlo? And again, I'm skeptical the fight even happens. How do you feel about that whole situation?
Yeah, no, I've got to agree that I'm still a little bit skeptical. I love what D-Style just said there, and he took the words right out of my mouth, to be honest. But look, he was obviously in a mean mood on Sunday our time, Saturday your time. But a great performance, and look, I 100% agree with everything that D-Style just said. If I'm still a little bit skeptical that he'll find a way, not necessarily to duck Tim. I don't think he wants to fight Tim out of spite, and I've said this all along. I don't think he likes Tim. I don't think he likes the fact that people have given Tszyu a great chance to beat him. But I'm hoping that is overridden by the heart of a champion or the fabric of a champion, whatever it might be.
Pride kicks in.
Yep. And he fights Tim. Look, I did see a comment before. I think it was from Team Batman Boxing. Shout out to you too, mate. That he reminds me a lot of Triple G. The way he fights, he hunts you. He hunts you down. He when you're trying to rest, he ups the pace. He fights the fight on his terms, and I think that is the one thing with Charlo is that he hasn't got a lot of his output's not great. He tends to fight not at a reduced sort of pace compared to a lot of other fighters. And I think that Tim will make him fight when he's trying to rest. And I'm not quite sure he can go with Tim's work rate. I really don't. The only thing for me is that the danger for Tim is the power of Charlo as the fight goes on. It's always going to be there. He can be susceptible to being hit. And even though he has been knocked down, I agree with D-Style that, hey, every fighter at some stage gets knocked down. Don't read too much into that. But I think his work rate is too much for Charlo. I think his overall skill more than matches Charlo. And I think, as I said, the only thing that I can see is that power as the fight goes on. But Great performance from Tszyu. Look, the only probably blemish I had on his performance on the weekend, and it can happen to the best of them, is that when he did hurt Ocampo, it was just bombs away. Not a lot of regards for what was coming back his way, but I think he knew that Ocampo couldn't hurt him. He was hurt, and he just went for it. Knowing the team like I do, I think they would have been right back the day after the fight working on the deficiencies, and that's why Tim has improved so much over the journey. He's his own biggest critic. He's got a sensational team around him. I know you guys have had Glenn Jennings on here before, and I'm assuming Tim himself. They are a very, very tight-knit team. They don't let the entourage get to them, everything else. They are a very switched-on team, and I think they'll be working on those deficiencies. And I think by the time he fights Jermell Charlo, you'll see an even better version of Tszyu. And I can't wait for it to happen. I think half of the Australian boxing world will be over there. And, I think it'll be great. It looks like it's going to happen mid-October in Vegas, from what I've heard. So let's hope that's the case, and our man can get the job done. But, we're very excited over here in the Australian boxing world that Tim can get can win this fight. And, as I said, can't wait for it to happen, if it does happen.
Okay. Shout out to Raphael32 with the $5 super chat. Says Jermell should want to fight Tszyu. This is a money fight for him. This is one of the biggest fights in boxing. I have this a 60-40 fight for Charlo. Okay. All right, Base. So we saw a great performance from Tszyu, and we have been seeing great performances from Tszyu, as I said earlier. Has that swayed your opinion on this fight, this potential fight with Jermell Charlo? How do you think this thing plays out, and do you even think it's going to happen?
Okay, so to answer the first part of the question, has it swayed my opinion? No. I still think that Jermell Charlo would win that fight based on styles alone. However, the only thing that, I would then factor in is, well, Tim's remained active, which is the best thing that a fighter can do. And obviously Jermell Charlo has not been active over the last year. Plus, we don't know what's gonna, what will occur with this quote unquote hand injury. A lot of people they're never the same. They never throw the hand with the same veracity. They're scared to pull that trigger just in case it goes again. And the last thing you want to do is for their hand to go in the fight, especially if you're in there against someone dangerous who can sort of punch like Tszyu. So the fight is a lot closer than I believed it was when it was initially announced. I thought that Tim would get quite handily beat and probably stopped, because I didn't see him as that much of a different fighter compared to someone like Castano. And again, stylistically, even though Jermell got it wrong or made hard work of it the first time, he adjusted and corrected those mistakes in the second fight. Tszyu, again, not that dissimilar. So you're not going in there with a total unknown quantity. And yes, while Jermell Charlo doesn't have the greatest of work rates, and Tszyu is a lot more sort of efficient with his engine and constant pressure or whatnot. Defense isn't the greatest. He hasn't got the same reach, so he's got to always stay in that kill zone to try and get shots off against the taller, rangier fighter. And I think he hasn't fought anyone yet with the same kind of punch power that Jermell Charlo has. So whereas he may not respect others' punch power as much, and even be defensible and tuck up behind the high guard, I think he would be a lot more cautious, especially if he got hit with something on the gloves earlier from Charlo that made him say, oh, okay, this power's a little bit different, like, let's be careful here. I don't think the work rate would remain the same, because ultimately it's the same thing that happened with Castano. In the first fight, he bundled forward quite a bit till he really got hurt with certain things. In the second fight, he didn't do the same thing. He was a lot more hesitant. So, yeah, ultimately, I still think Charlo would win the fight, but it's a lot closer now because he's got more rounds in the bank, got more experience, and he's staying active, which is obviously the best thing for him to do. Now, will the fight happen? I don't think so. Initially, I always thought that Jermell would be the one that will go there and clean up a mandatory because thus far he hasn't had one, and you say, okay, well, you have the undisputed and defend the undisputed once before you do whatever you're going to do. But him being out for a year, his brother being out for 2 years, brother's coming back, it seems, at 168. It just makes all the sense in the world right now that he's not going to bother staying at 154 and draining himself down after not making that weight for as long as he has. So yeah, I can kind of see him moving up to 160 now. Brother's moved up, he might as well move up as well, in his mind. So yeah, I don't see the fight happening.
Okay, so Dave, I mentioned Tszyu, awesome performance this past Saturday, blasting out Ocampo. He's getting better and better, it seems, every fight. But then we have to factor in that inactivity from Jermell Charlo. So one guy seems to kind of have the momentum, and the other guy's pretty much stagnated. Is that going to play into a potential fight? Does the fight change now in your mind based on what you've seen this past year? And do you even think it happens? Do you think it happens? Because I'm very skeptical on whether it happens or not.
You're talking to you, Shushan.
Talking to you, Dave.
Oh, man, I missed a day. First of all, Beeb, thanks for having me on the panel.
Yeah,
Salute
no
in the chat. Sorry about the little brain fart there. Hey,
No
first
problem.
of all, Tim Tszyu keeps impressing me at each and every fight. I'm becoming an even bigger fan of him and his performances. Now, when you take into account all these children of great fighters and great champions, like we just saw Sugar Shane Mosley, and I think D-Style was mentioning Junior Chavez Jr., of course, who did become a world champion, and Shane Mosley, who's intermittently, the guy is, you never know what you're going to get out of the guy. But this guy was born to fight, man, and he keeps proving it. He is born to fight, born to be a world champion like his father. And in each and every fight, you keep seeing a progression that you want to see. The activity is fantastic. The guy said, okay, fine, you're not going to fight me again. I'll fight somebody who's fought somebody great. He fought Fundora. The Ocampo guy fought Fundora for 12 rounds. So it's not like he's a slouch. He's been in there with Errol Spence, even though he was knocked out in the first round. But he picked, a decent opponent to stay busy and keep growing. And his skill set keeps improving. The guy can cut off the ring. He's got heavy hands that are game-changing power in his hands, man. I do not favor Jermell Charlo anymore to win this fight. And like some of you guys have pointed out, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to come into fruition because, first of all, the guy's been inactive for almost 2 years. He's coming off major surgery, which Basic Kid just pointed out. Fighters are almost never the same with those type of hand injuries. And with the middleweight division being a joke, I think that the best bet for Jermell Charlo is to move up and avoid a dangerous fight. And I think that's what we're going to see happen. I think this fight will be avoided. And Tim Tszyu will fight for a vacant title at some opportunity and become a world champion just like his great father, Tszyu.
And real quick, I was watching him doing an interview, and he was talking about his hand, and he never got the surgery on his hand. He just kind of rehabbed it and let it heal up. Do you hear about that, Base? Where he I was watching it on Showtime. They were doing some type of documentary on him, and he just let it. He didn't get. He was recommended to have to get surgery, and he never did that. So I'm a little bit curious on how that hand is going to be when he does come back, to be quite honest. And that's probably why it took so long and he's been off so long, because he probably didn't do what was advised for him to do. I'm sure, different people told him different things, but more often than not, when a situation like that happens, you do kind of get like, if you have to get surgery, you have to get surgery. It's that simple, depending upon how bad the break is. You have to get it reset sometimes, and you have to kind of fix some of the ligaments in there. So, this thing could be more serious than we know or even think. So
my message to Jermell is: look, there's a lot of people that believe in you, Jermell. They believe you could do easy work of Tszyu and expose him. So sign a fight. Let's get it on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Things are settled in the ring, and like at the end, I could think what I think. Others could think what they think. I'm a fight fan. I need to, as a fight fan, I need to see this fight. Boxing is a good old experiment, and that's how let's do the experiment. Let's put him in the ring, and let's get it on. Okay. If Jermell Charlo does not fight Tszyu, it's a duck. Like, I'm just gonna say it right now. That's what it is.
Okay, so another interesting matchup coming up this week. Edgar Berlanga is making his Matchroom debut. Another fighter making their Matchroom debut. He's going to be taking on Jason Quigley. And I've never really been high on Edgar Berlanga for some reason. I just for some reason he just doesn't seem to really be dialed into the sport. I see him at the press conference today, and he's got the sunglasses. He's all blinged out. He looks more like kind of like an entertainer and less like a fighter. And I'm not saying you can't buy nice things. I'm not saying you can't floss, whatever. But I don't know, man. It's just something about this guy where I think he's caught up in that celebrity type mindset. And once you get caught up in that, when you have a sense of self-worth, when you haven't really walked the walk yet, I think Top Rank knew what they were doing when they released him. And I'm not sure if this was a great move for Eddie, but I think this could be a possible banana peel base. Am I wrong here?
No, you're not wrong. Edgar Berlanga sucks. But that being said, if he can't beat and knock out Jason Quigley, then yeah, there is no hope for him whatsoever in any capacity. I'm not saying Jason Quigley is a terrible fighter, because he's not. But if you look at everything, he's had one fight in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. He's a natural 160 guy. This is his second fight at 168. And I think that's literally just because he had over a year out the ring and probably just didn't want to drain all the way down to 160. Berlanga's a naturally bigger guy. He's definitely much harder puncher. Jason Quigley isn't that nimble or that fleet of foot where Berlanga won't be able to hold his feet and let off, you know, a devastating right hand or like a right hook or something. So while I'm not expecting it to be like a one round blowout, like Tszyu just done to Ocampo or something like that, I don't see there being a huge amount of jeopardy in this fight, and that's even me taking into consideration how trash Berlanga is. I understand why Eddie signed him, because he wants that New York market, and he's a big ticket. Well, I don't know if he's a big ticket seller, but ultimately there is that big Puerto Rican demographic in New York, and that's what Eddie was looking at. And he's trying to get someone that he can essentially spoon feed 1 or 2 fights. He was hoping to obviously then cash out with a very big fight like a Canelo. But if that's now not going to happen, then maybe you just got to cash him out with one of your other 168 guys, who you're trying to build a big who you're going to try and build a profile on. But yeah, I mean, look, he's been out of the year. He's been out of the ring a year. Has he maybe been working on stuff for that year? I can only give him the benefit of doubt until I see it. So maybe he comes back and he's boxing a lot better, and he's committing to his shots a lot more. He's cutting off the ring a lot more. Maybe he looks like a totally different guy. And if that's the case, I'll happily come on and retract my statement, or cautiously say I underestimated what I think he could be. But yeah, ultimately, not even that I remember the question, but yeah, he's trash. But him being as trash as he is, he's still gonna win this fight quite handily. This is the easiest announcement fight you could get for a new platform. So yeah, he should be getting well paid, and good luck to him.
Dave, is this set up for Berlanga just to look good, or could this be a possible banana skin here for him?
It could be a banana skin, but let's be honest. The guy's been very inactive, coming off to a huge KO loss to Demetrius Andrade at 160 pounds. So, with that in mind, the long layoff and the fact that his chin has been already tested and proven not to hold up to power his shots like Demetrius Andrade, I think it's a very good chance that if he gets caught with Edgar Berlanga's power at 168, that he could go down. And I think that's exactly why they banked on this. You take into a combination that you're bringing in a great Puerto Rican home base audience and then also a very large Irish community in the city of New York. This could be a very fun fight while it lasts. I think ultimately if the fight goes to a decision, Quigley's got enough boxing skills in there to make it difficult for Edgar Berlanga, because Edgar Berlanga has shown actually as the competition has stepped up, it's been kind of relevant. You could see it that his boxing skill isn't there. So he could get into some trouble with Jason Quigley, who's been in there with some very good fighters like Turiano Johnson. While it lasted, he's been in there with Demetrius Andrade. He could get into trouble if it comes into a decision. I think there could be some problems for him. But ultimately, this guy, he's got enough pop to hurt the guy. So I'm going to go with that their gamble is going to pay off this weekend, and it's going to be in a very exciting in-house crowd with the Irish fans and the Puerto Rican crowd.
Gotcha. Lyndon, is Quigley a live underdog here? Any surprises you envision on Saturday, or are you going to kind of roll with the rest of the crew?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I think I'll roll with everyone else. Look, I think it's a really good matchup as far as the event goes. Obviously, Puerto Rican versus the Irish, but I think it's great. So the event should be good. But look, I think Quigley, I think he's quite capable of giving Berlanga some troubles. But look, this is obviously Berlanga's coming out party. This is what it's designed to be. And I think he gets the KO maybe mid rounds and puts on a performance. Someone's phone there. I do agree, though, that it's probably a little bit early with the sunglasses and all the flashiness at the press conference. Let's just get some good wins under your belt, get a big fight or whatever, and then you can come out with that. But look, he's trying to obviously do what he's got to do to get himself out there. But as I said, I think it'll be a tricky fight for 5 or 6 rounds, and I would expect Berlanga to get Quigley out of there.
Okay. Rafael 32, thank you again. Another $5 super chat. Said, forget Berlanga. The fights are J-Rock versus Adames and Lubin versus Arias. J-Rock should win, but he fights up and down. Lubin beats a tough Arias. Adames has skill. Yeah, that J-Rock fight is definitely an intriguing fight, without question. So, D-Star, I'm going to take it in another direction with you with this fight. If Berlanga has another lackluster performance where he labors in this fight and he doesn't get the knockout or he doesn't win convincingly, what happens next after that? Where does he go? What do they do with him?
There's several things they could do with him. Like they can go the route of like kind of what I've been saying about Munguia, just go the action fighter. This is Munguia. He's an exciting dude, because I never seen a boring Berlanga fight. I never fell asleep during one of his fights. It's his flaws and his punching power mixed together make for some beautiful chemistry to watch. You know what I mean? So I'm not, going to bash him in that department, but I do believe he was definitely overhyped, right? I mean, like it's everything that they were telling me. When I see Berlanga, it reminds me of that scene in the movie Gladiator when the new emperor's strolling in and the senators look at him. They're like, he enters Rome like a conquering hero. But what has he conquered? Right? Like that is Berlanga in a nutshell. He hasn't done anything, but he talks like this big game.
Good analogy.
I will never forget when Canelo fought Callum Smith.
Oh.
The fight goes a distance, right? Canelo dominates the fight, but Callum Smith showed toughness, and his bicep was torn up in that fight. So to his credit, he showed a lot of grit and toughness in that fight. What does Berlanga do? LOL. He tweets out, I would have knocked this guy. I would have knocked that bum out in 2 rounds. I can't believe Canelo took this guy the distance, yada, yada, yada. And ever since he opened up his mouth about that, he ain't been able to knock anybody out. Ever since then. He's going to, all of a sudden, he's going the distance. And he's talking about Canelo ain't the same. You ain't the same. Right? You ain't the same. Right? Like I don't even know if you were ever up to par, bro. Look, we may end up watching this fight and be like, man, Quigley's putting hands on this dude. I think Quigley will put hands on him, quite frankly. I think Berlanga will win. I think Berlanga's ultimately going to win this fight. Maybe he finally gets a stoppage in this fight. But I'll tell you right now, this reminds me a lot of when I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, for those that watch the NFL, okay? Years ago, when Tom Brady had his breakout year, Drew Bledsoe got injured. Tom Brady steps in. They win a Super Bowl, right? So they have their starting quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, and so they traded him. Where did they trade him? They traded him to the Buffalo Bills. Right then and there, I knew Drew Bledsoe is done. How did I know he was done? Because they traded him to a team in the same freaking division, right? If they know a dude's good and he still got it, they don't trade him in the same division. They trade him somewhere else where they don't need to worry about them for a while, right? Now when they're going to see him twice a year. My point is, Top Rank doesn't just get rid of dudes, okay? Top Rank, if there was something there for Berlanga, Top Rank would have done what they had to do to keep them in the roster, and they're not, okay? They pretty easily let him go. So now he's selling a package of goods to Eddie Hearn. We're going to see how that goes, all right? I have a feeling it's going to be a tough fight for Berlanga, and I will also say this. I am relieved that we're not going to get Berlanga Canelo in September like some people were supposedly saying we were going to get. I never believed that was going to be a fight we're going to get. But for whatever reason, people were convinced, oh, you know how Canelo moves. He's going to fight Berlanga. Like, you guys, you don't follow the sport, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? But with that said, there you go. If look, Berlanga, Munguia, bro, that's a fight to make. You want Puerto Rico versus Mexico, two flawed fighters. That's a fight to make. I think Munguia stops in mid-rounds, but that's a fight they could put on the zone.
It's a no-brainer, yeah. So there's been an ongoing soap opera here, and David Benavidez has been right dead center in the middle of it. And this is like a head-scratcher to me. We have Samson Lukowitz, his promoter, saying that this fight with Morrell is already signed, sealed, and delivered. It's going to happen in October, November. But then David Benavidez does an interview, and he's saying, oh, I haven't signed anything. I haven't agreed to anything. So I don't know who to believe here. Then David Morrell's coming out, cussing David Benavidez out, did a press release and shamed him and insulted him. So I don't know who to believe here. What's going on with Team Benavidez? Who is he going to fight next? Is Morrell next? We're hearing Munguia's name being floated out there. What's going on with this whole situation, Lynn? How do you see this thing playing out, man?
Sorry, talking to me?
Yes.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, look, it's a lot of like what happens a lot in boxing these days, a lot of he said, she said sort of stuff. But look, I think the Munguia fight will be next for Benavidez. Or look, and then maybe the winner of that will fight the Canelo and Charlo winner. Who knows? But yeah, look, I really was looking forward to that fight. If it was going to be Morrell versus Benavidez, I actually give Morrell a good chance of beating him. The only thing, he's only had 9 fights, whatever it might be, but that would be a really good fight for me. But I think Munguia will be next. It probably all adds up and makes sense. And yeah, I think that will be next. And as I said, hopefully the Canelo Charlo winner will fight, and we're back on track for some big fights.
Yeah. So, Base, let me ask you this, because this is something I've been thinking about too, because Charlo's been rumored, but it hasn't been made official. Could David Benavidez still sneak in the back door here now that Canelo looks like he's headed to PBC? Could that fight still happen? And maybe Charlo gets put on the back burner. Maybe Charlo fights Andre instead. Am I being a little bit over optimistic here?
Very optimistic.
Okay.
Personally, look, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't actually think that Benavidez wants the Canelo fight. I think what he wanted was to ride Canelo's wave. The way his entire team has moved for the last 2 years tells me that he didn't really want that fight. Because if it was that case, you've been interim for like the last year and a half. You could have forced and enforced and pressured the WBC to, initiate a mandatory procedure at any point, and you didn't. Now, all right, he's on your platform now, which makes it a lot easier. But even the way that his manager, even the way Samson Lukowicz is moving, just kind of tells me that if you was that keen on making him the next big breakout star, like, you would have done things a lot differently than you have. Now, with regards to Benavidez and Munguia, yeah, that fight's not happening either, because there's no chance that Golden Boy are going to sacrifice another guy to PBC when they've got no other stars that they can bank on right now. So yeah, unless Benavidez would be willing to do it on the zone where Golden Boy can then make some money off of it, they're not going to do that, because Munguia, as limited as he might be, is actually one of their biggest draws. He constantly sells out when he fights. He's got the Mexican crowd behind him. They love that he's at least in fun fights, as flawed as he might be. And yeah, profile wise, that's the biggest star they've got outside of Ryan, who's no longer really there, if we're being honest, and Virgil Ortiz, who basically can't stay at the hospital. So yeah, I don't see Benavidez fighting Canelo in September. I don't really know what he does. I mean, look, the Morrell fight, I think they know that fight is... look, okay, things may have changed now that you've got Canelo kind of within PBC. Maybe some of the alterations change. You say, okay, well, if we catch him out, we might as well do it against Canelo as opposed to a Morrell. But realistically, Morrell has made such a noise about this. He's actually almost raised his profile off the back of what's gone on with Benavidez and stuff right now. So as much as people say that they want him to be fighting Canelo, he might end up getting pressured to sort of take that Morrell work or other work within PBC first. And realistically, he kind of needs a little bit more time for Canelo to quote unquote age out, get older. And if he can maintain at 168, which is also going to be an issue, because that's one of the biggest things, is that, well, if he takes on Canelo, he should do it now, because he's busting at the seams there, like killing himself to make that weight, just because he knows at 175 he's a dead man walking. But yeah, it's all a bit muddied, but ultimately, no, I don't think that fight is optimistic of happening next. He might end up fighting someone like Andre. That might end up being an easier task for him, because Andre has shown that he doesn't have the engine, and that's one thing you can say. You can kind of get to Andre late, especially at 168, where he's now holding a little extra weight on the frame, and against obviously Nicholson, you kind of could see that extra pounds was wearing on him a bit further down the line. So that was one of the fights that they had initially quoted. It was supposed to be Morrell, Charlo, and Andrade in a 3-fight deal for Benavidez. Maybe you just move Andrade up to the next one and sort of just change the rotation around.
Yeah. So D-Style, could a fight with Morrell and Canelo fall through back to back, and like Bay says, maybe we get Benavidez, Andrade? Like, what's going on over there with this camp?
Man. I'm still waiting for Andre to make a good decision for once. Okay, like that's number one. But here's the thing. Okay, first of all, so that needs to be cleared up. Like, people need to understand this, right? The person that runs PBC is Al Heyman, not Samson, not any of those puppet promoters that they just use for logistic reasons. All right, it's Al Heyman. Al Heyman runs everything over there. Okay, so anyone who actually does anybody really believe that Samson, okay, through sending a proposal through his phone, okay, was negotiating the fight with Saul Canelo Alvarez? Does anybody really believe that? Because he just announced a deal with PBC, right? That tells me that Canelo's team was talking to the head honcho. They were talking to Al Heyman directly, right? And the reports are true that it's a 3-fight deal. You're a fool if you don't think Benavidez is part of that. But if you're Al Heyman, right, like from his perspective, not from a fan's, but from Al Heyman's perspective, yeah, you're going to put him in. You're going to cash out Charlo. You're going to throw Charlo in there with him, right? And then you set up a Cinco de Mayo fight for Benavidez next year. For anyone who thinks Canelo's ducking Benavidez, what is he doing exactly? Is he aging out Benavidez? Because last I checked, he's older, right? What is he doing? He's leaving his prime. This guy is entering his prime. How is he ducking him? In what capacity? Since when? Did he duck him when he lost his belt in the scale from failing to make weight? Or was it when he got caught with drugs and it stripped him for that? When was he ducking him? When he earned his weight because he beat Lemieux? So he beat Lemieux, so Canelo needs to run like he needs to fight Benavidez now. Canelo Alvarez will fight David Benavidez. It will happen, right? It may not happen when we want it. I want it next. I'm with you if you guys want to fight next. I want it too.
Yeah.
Right? But like I'm looking at the situation and I'm saying to myself, you're gonna get the fight. Okay, he didn't fight Golovkin the moment you wanted him to fight him, but he fought him. Right? Maybe he didn't fight Lara the moment you wanted, but he fought him. Maybe he didn't fight Trout the moment you wanted, but he fought him. He has the track record of fighting everybody. So I don't understand why people believe he's not. You're going to look like fools when the day comes and he fights Benavidez. Now, here's the thing about the universe, okay? I'm a spiritual guy, and I believe that the energy you put out always comes back to you. Always. David Morrell's been sitting back watching his name be used by Benavidez's team, right? Samson out there. If Canelo doesn't want to fight because he's scared, then we will do the fight with Morrell. The dude sounds like a fucking Bond villain out here and shit. They're doing these shows, okay? We will do the fight with Morrell because we taking over Vegas. Like whatever you want to say, brother, okay? Here's the thing. Morrell is out here. Now, I don't agree with the thing Morrell is saying about Benavidez. I'm quoting Morrell. He put out a press release. You're out here saying Canelo's a duck. You're a duck. Stop using my name. Are you going to fight me or what? He called him a bitch. That's what he said in the press release.
Fighting words.
Like he's using those fighting words. He said, if where I'm from, if you were like, you would get your shoes stolen in Cuba. If you were,
damn.
Okay, like that's what he said. Like, so what he's doing is he's putting the energy back out there because Benavidez has been, and his dad, right? They've been calling Canelo bitch, and you're scared, and you're this and you're that. Canelo don't even give a shit. Canelo's out there in Italy and shit, getting a tan or whatever. Okay, a much needed one, looking like Casper the Friendly Ghost out there. But okay, he's out there in Italy. He don't even know what the fuck's going on, right? Reynoso's working out a deal, right? As we know now, right? Well, with PBC and all that. But Benavidez, his dad thinks that the negotiations happen on YouTube channels, right? And sending proposals on phones. That they think like we're stupid and we think that's how you make a fight, right? Well, that's not how you make fights. At the end of the day, that's not how it's done. We all know you answer to Al. You went directly to the source. He's going to work with Al, right? But you like at the end of the day, you guys said you're going to fight Morrell. Like there's receipts on this. And Morrell is saying, yo, I already agreed to the fight. Are we going to fight or what? So he's putting the energy back out, man. Like everything you put out to Canelo, Morrell's saying, yo, like you got all these fighting words for Canelo, but I'm literally like calling you out. I'm literally calling you these names. So to me, the message is simple from Morrell. Either fight me or stop using my fucking name. Keep my name out of your mouth and you're not going to fight me. Stop trying to act tough. Like you're going to fight me if Canelo don't want to smoke. And now all of a sudden you want to fight Munguia. Okay, so I think Morrell's made the point very, very clear. All right. Now, all of a sudden, Benavidez, he ain't talking to Morrell the same way he was talking about Canelo all of a sudden. Right? The energy is different. So, look, if people want to criticize Canelo because you want to see the Benavidez fight, I believe it will happen. But if you want to criticize him, fine. But you got to keep the same energy when it comes to Morrell. Right? For whatever reason, now they're saying they want to fight Munguia. I guess. Okay, and that's what you want to do. Go fight Munguia. All right, but you gas people up about the Morrell fight. Now you're not going to fight Morrell. So I don't like. I never in my life seen Canelo say he's going to fight somebody, and then when they're saying, "Hey, are we going to fight or what?" and then he doesn't do the fight. I never see that happen. Right? To his credit, when Canelo says he wants to fight somebody, he pursues that fight. Right? He signed a multi-fight deal with PBC. He fights at 168. right? Believe me, Al has every intention of making that Benavidez fight.
Dave, we've been hearing about this Morrell fight for like months, right? And we thought we were going to get it. Now, is Benavidez having second thoughts? Is his team having second thoughts? Is this too much risk for too little reward? What's going on here, man?
What's bothering me is that everything is out in they're trying. His team needs to get on the same page, and I'm talking about his publicist, who I'm very friendly with, Sam, and his father. They all need to be on the same page because everything is out in the open. And there's just too many false flags, right? And you leave poor David out there to try to defend himself for what his team is doing behind the scenes. So this fight between David Morrell that we all anticipated, we were all hoping for as being the best fight at 168 that could happen, aside from him fighting Canelo. It's a way dangerous fight with very, very high risk and low reward. It's actually not a good idea for David Benavidez, in my opinion, to take that David Morrell fight prior to getting an opportunity to fight in Canelo Alvarez. Everything could be disrupted, as I personally think that David Morrell is the better fighter of the two, even though he's got less than 15 fights, which leaves him in a precarious situation because, okay, then who does he fight? How do you get the attention of Canelo Alvarez, who's coming back to PBC to become a worthwhile opponent? Because for Canelo, David Benavidez is a dangerous opponent, one of the most dangerous opponents at PBC and at the 168-pound division. It leaves David Benavidez with, for me, I think the easier fight is, and this could be controversial, is actually with Boo Boo Andre. Is pursue that fight. Because I believe that he can cut off the ring and potentially hurt the much, much older Boo Boo Andre, who's been largely inactive. He's gotten lucky, Boo Boo Andre, fighting guys that are well beneath his talent level. But that ring inactivity is just way too dangerous against a very young lion like David Benavidez. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Boo Boo Andrade, who also wants who's been chasing that Canelo payday for years in press conferences and everywhere online. Hey, if Boo Boo Andrade can pull off an upset like that in his 30s, more power to him, because then he's got a strong case to get that Canelo fight. These are two very good fights. Either way you pick him. And David Morrell, I'd like to see him build his resume, to continue to build his resume. So, but again, going back to David Benavidez' situation, his team needs to get on the same page before they make all these statements. That's what they need to do.
Yeah. Speaking of soap operas and drama, once again, Oscar De La Hoya is in the midst of the drama with Ryan Garcia. I guess Ryan Garcia sent a demand letter. His legal team sent a demand letter to Golden Boy Promotions. And apparently there's a California law that says you can't have someone under contract for more than 7 years. Ryan Garcia is complaining about the issue with his deal, saying that if he was on pay-per-view, he doesn't have to be on DAZN. It could be on any network of his choice if it's negotiated. So there's a lot of things going on here. And there's even rumors that Ryan could get out of this contract. He's looking to get out of this contract and could go over to PBC. So how do you think this plays out, Lyndon? I mean, I keep asking that same question, how does this play out? But there is a lot of crazy shit going on right now in boxing that we just don't know what's going to happen. But how do you think this plays out? Do you think Garcia gets out of this contract? Could you see Garcia getting out just like Canelo did? And could he go over to PBC?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You would initially think no that he can't, but I mean, Canelo did it. There's always loopholes in these circumstances, whether it be, laws, money, whatever it might be. But look, it's just a sad situation, and it really is probably sums up Oscar De La Hoya in the last few years. I mean, he's been a bit of a mess in his private life. Now it's a bit of a mess in his professional life. So. Yeah, look, who knows how it's going to play out. I've got a suspicion that these things always end in one way, and that will be a separation. I don't think they can work together anymore. You could just imagine if he can't get out of the contract, it might be a little bit frosty in negotiations and everything with the fights going forward. But as I said, I'm not quite sure the logistics of it all. I'm not sure anyone is, but all I can say is that we'll see down the track is that this ends one way, and I think it'll be a split. Garcia will end up maybe with a PBC or someone like that, or an Eddie Hearn, who knows. But yeah, it's just a bit of a shame that Oscar's been sort of so unpredictable in the last few years. Let's hope this is not another fighter leaving him, and it just shows there's got to be something wrong with Oscar's organisation that this continues to happen. And I know he continues to talk up his organisation that it's going to be doing great things. But I'd tell you what, if Ryan Garcia leaves Golden Boy, there's not really much left in that company, and you've really got to worry about the future of Golden Boy. But yeah, as I said, I can only see it ending one way, and that's a split, unfortunately.
Yeah. So whether there's a split or not, D-Style, one thing's for certain: this relationship is toxic, right? It's not healthy, right? So what do you think, man? I mean, do we see Ryan Garcia stay with Golden Boy? Does Golden Boy end up losing in court with the statute? How does this play out?
Look, I'll say this: I don't know what's going to happen in court, right? But we'll see what happens. However, this is already like the fact that Oscar felt the need to take it to court. What this is telling me is everything he's been trying to either propose to Ryan or work with Ryan, whatever it is, they've been turning it down. They've been kind of just ignoring him and maybe working deals on the side or whatever the case is. And I think it was annoying Oscar. You know what I mean? But here's the deal, though. This stuff like this doesn't just happen overnight. All right. It doesn't just happen. Right. Someone, at some point, Oscar lost control of everything. Like at one point, he had people running everything for him. He had Richard Schaefer running things for him. He was working very close with Al Heyman, right? Just to think that everyone you see at PBC right now, along with Canelo, was all part of Golden Boy, right? And he lost all that, like almost overnight, right? And the fact that a lot of things happen, like, how do you lose all these fighters, and how are they not exclusively signed to you when you were promoting them? And like, I just don't see this ever happening to a Bob Arum, an Eddie Hearn. I just don't ever. I can't imagine that, right? The fact that all that happened overnight, and then his saving grace was Canelo. And I seen Canelo do interviews about this where he said, look, I could have left. I was not obligated to stay. Oscar didn't have his shit in order. Like, he just didn't. But I wanted to be loyal, and I stayed, right? And he talks about how he learned a lot from that, how maybe being loyal all the time just doesn't always work out to your favor, right? And he did things behind Canelo's back when he worked at the zone deal, and that's ultimately what got him out of his contract with Golden Boy, right? They were also using Canelo to subsidize a lot of the other fighters on the stable. Now you could say, hey, that's part of the deal, like hey, you're the big name fighter in the promotion, so that's kind of how it works. But it's the fact that you let it get to this point, and now with Ryan, it's like he doesn't want to be with you. You know what I mean? Like he's giving you divorce papers, and he doesn't want to be with you anymore, Oscar. Like the writing's on the wall for me with Golden Boy at this point. Like, and it's been there for a while. It's been a slow, like, first there was that big cliff fall right after all those PBC fighters left that ended up being PBC. And then it's been like a slow grinding death. And it's only gotten worse. He's started to nosedive now, the promotional company, since Canelo left. And now Ryan wants to leave. I think they might win the case because a lot of these contracts are ironclad, I think. It's going to be hard to get out. But if I'm Oscar, I mean, just take the settlement, I guess. Like just not a settlement, a buyout. Let him buy out of his contract. Why do you want to work with somebody that doesn't want to work with you? For what? You know what I mean? It's not going to be a good working relationship. And it's just ugly. It's out in the open. Ryan's questioning everything he does. He's questioning Ryan. It's I don't see anything repairing this relationship at all. So at this point, just let him walk. But I wouldn't just let him walk. I mean, at least get a payout out of it. But that's what I would do if I'm Oscar, to be honest with you. Now, some may say, well, why would he do that? That's crazy. He doesn't want to work with you. Like it's this relationship is damaged. Like it's damaged to the core, right? But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, so Dave, even if he does stay with De La Hoya, what can Golden Boy offer him over there at 140? There's really not much there anyways, right? So it's kind of a lose-lose for everyone unless he kind of does a lot of co-promotion.
Well, there's a potential they could negotiate that Raleigh Romero fight. You know, we did see Raleigh go to California and attend the Golden Boy event, and you saw how close and chummy Oscar was with Raleigh. That's a fight that, you know, could go either way, to be honest. Now, if he wants to really say goodbye to Ryan, he could throw him to Regis Prograis, that even though Regis had a very lackluster performance last Saturday, I think Regis would completely knock out Ryan in the ring. That's another way he can go too. I don't think, you know, like D-Styles made a great point, you know, even in marriages, relationships, you know, specifically like when it comes to like divorce, there's always sometimes there's one person who wants out, right? And Ryan wants out. And the relationships are almost always irreparable. There's not much you can do about it. Which makes a poor working relationship. And I agree with D-Style on that 100%. Why continue the relationship when somebody wants out that bad? But I'm no expert or know very little about contract law, but I'm going to probably think that eventually we'll see that Ryan doesn't have an argument and that they'll be dismissed. I think that Oscar's attorneys were probably really in this situation know what they were doing. And that Ryan is going to have to make some type of a settlement to get out of his contract. And like we saw the Edgar Berlanga having some lackluster performances, maybe being just a hype job, we saw him pick up another contract, you know, and with people that think he's marketable and willing to invest. And I think that's ultimately what we're going to see Ryan Garcia somehow get his way out of this contract and go to a different promotional venue, vehicle, or maybe even go out on his own. If his star power really is what, you know, he thinks it is, maybe he'll go out on his own. That doesn't mean I think Ryan's going to have a world championship type career. I'm not banking on that one bit.
So I gotta look at history base, and I've seen Oscar lose all those PBC fighters, right? I've seen him lose Canelo. So to me, it always seems like he doesn't have his house in order. And I also see it plausible that probably doesn't have his house in order with Ryan Garcia. That's obvious. I have a feeling that Ryan will be able to walk away from this. What do you think, man?
Yes or no. He'll definitely get out of the contract, but I don't know how quick it will be. There's obviously, I just heard that thing about you can't have more than a 7-year contract or whatnot. I know that's very similar in, you know, UK football. I think the most you're allowed to sign is 6 years for anyone over the age of 23. But I think under that you can sign maybe 7. But with that being said, I mean, Ryan, didn't he not just re-up a deal during the pandemic in like 2020 or something like that, or 29? No, it was 2020 when he was like, I think it was just before the pandemic where he said he was the highest, he had the best prospect contract ever seen in boxing or whatever. So however long that was ago, whether it was 2019, 2020, or if it was a 7-year contract, in theory, there's still another 3 years left on it. And you can't say restriction of trade because there was a period of time where you was offered fights and you turned them down. You went on your mental health retreat and all that sort of stuff. So you can't say they haven't been keeping you active because and then you went on your quote unquote broken hand tour as well. So there's all of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that he can't actually argue in court to say, well, there's no restriction of trade because you took yourself out of fights. You got injured, supposedly. They offered you multiple fights. You've now got this one. Obviously, your head's been turned elsewhere. and you want to basically take the money, which obviously I don't blame him for. I would as well. But a contract's a contract. Really, what he needs to do is just see what's left on the contract. And as you said, I mean, he just done quote unquote 1.2 million between the Zone and Showtime, right? So you would have got a nice chunk of that change, offer a settlement deal, or agree to pay out a percentage of your contract for a reduction in fights and have one fight or two fights, get them done this year, or one this year, the first one, next one January next year, something like that, and call it a day that way. A negotiation to me seems to be the only way he gets out of that without sitting out for like another 2-3 years. But then again, he said he wanted to retire by the age of 25 anyway, so he might not care.
Yeah. I mean, the guy can make a lot of money outside their ring, so sometimes you have to ask yourself, what's the incentive for this guy to keep fighting? And we heard rumors that he didn't have a dedicated training camp for Tank, so time will tell how this whole thing plays out. But I have a feeling he's going to get out of this contract one way or the other. So speaking of contracts, we were told that Anthony Joshua was headed for a Dillian White fight in August, but obviously Dillian White's saying no, he doesn't like the money for the fight. He rejected the offer. Eddie has said that they're still trying to make this fight for AJ in August. And since this whole Saudi thing has been talked about, outside of Usyk, Wilder, Fury, and Joshua, they really haven't had a solid fight in the interim. And we kind of had an inkling that maybe they'll just wait it out and just wait for that December fight in Saudi and not mess up the bag. But Eddie seems that pretty adamant that he wants AJ to get out in August. But I don't know where AJ's head's at. If this Dillian White fight can't happen, what do they do in August base? And we're creeping up in July. How are we going to put this fight together in such a short period of time? What's gonna happen here?
Well, ultimately, look, I think they need the activity because they need to put things together under those hot lights. The Dillian White fight's not going to happen. Contrary to what a lot of people said, they plucked that £10 million thing out of the air. He never asked for that kind of money. But clearly, I feel like, I said on the video yesterday, I always feel like when it comes to AJ and Dillian, since AJ beat him that first time, it's almost on a degree of like, okay, I know that you're good for business in terms of when you was on my undercards or whatnot, but if I'm going to fight you again, like, you really need to understand how much of the B-side you are. So I think he's intentionally offers Dillian money that he knows Dillian won't take based on, I guess the career that he's put together for himself. So it's not necessarily like, oh, it's chump change, but compared to knowing the business and kind of knowing what that fight does, I feel like he probably offers him half of the true value or what his true value would be of a fight, or maybe like 2/3. And then Dillian's like, well, no, that's not, come on, let's be sensible here, kind of thing. Now they've been speaking about Ajit Kabayel as I guess like a last minute type replacement kind of thing, or a last minute opponent. No, it makes absolutely no sense, purely because if you're going to be fighting Deontay Wilder in December, you need realistically to fight someone of the same size and dimensions as Deontay Wilder, or they don't have to fight the same, but you've got to be preparing for a 6'7", 6'6", 6'8" type guy who is an orthodox fighter, who also has pretty good speed. That's what you need as your next opponent. So fighting someone that's 6'3", 6'2", none of that makes any sense. So like I said on Twitter last week, and I noticed it's made its way into a couple of people's videos, and they haven't really tried to give me the credit for it, but that's fine. He should fight. They should try and make a deal to sign FA Jagba for that fight. Top Rank are not gonna not allowed Ajagba that fight. Bob Arum knows, number one, Ajagba's not going to be anything special. I think he realizes that now, especially after this, the Stephen Shaw fight, and he'll get a percentage of that, whether it's on the zone or whatever. AJ's the cash cow. There's no reason for Bob Arum to veto that fight because, as I said, Ajagba's not going to the upper echelons. Let AJ fight Ajagba, very similar dimension, same reach as Deontay Wilder, like 83-inch reach, I think. 1 inch shorter, so 6'6", whereas Deontay's 6'7". It's the perfect dimensions. He fights in a very similar-ish type style behind the jab. He's got a very strong right hand, but his boxing skills are on par-ish with what Deontay shows. It's the perfect tune-up fight or the perfect gauging fight towards a Wilder fight, while not being the most high-risk one, and it would sell well enough. You do it Nigeria versus Nigeria in the UK. There's a lot of narratives there, especially when FA came out several years back saying that AJ is not a true Nigerian. He doesn't represent us. There's a lot of narratives you can build into there. So to me, that's the fight to make. And if that fight doesn't not get made, someone needs to pay me my royalties, because I'm getting tired of putting all this good quality on Twitter and then not getting the credit for it afterwards.
We'll give you the credit here, Base, as always. We're not going to.
No, I want the money. Your credit's nice, but I want the money.
We'll work out a deal with you. Don't worry about that. All right, D-Style, are they going to just ride this out till December? Or are they really going to get this fight in August, like they've been saying?
Well, look, I want to say something nobody's actually said. I never heard anyone ever in the history of life, of mankind, say this. I think they should do a fight with Efe Ajagba. You know what they could do? I'm joking, but here's the thing. I actually like that fight, by the way. I think that's a good.
That was a good idea, Base. I never thought of that, man. Excellent idea.
If I'm Joshua, why do I even risk it, bro? Let's just wait for the Wilder fight and get that money, get that bag. You know what I mean? And then who knows? You might even do a rematch of the Wilder. You know what I mean? Because I think that fight's going to be exciting while it lasts. One of them's getting knocked out. I have my prediction on who I think wins, but regardless of who wins, it ends by knockout, in my opinion. But that's what I would do if I am Joshua. However, an Efe fight is actually a good fight to do before a Wilder fight, actually. So that's something they could do, but I don't know. AJ he's kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. You know what I mean? Because people have high expectations of him to fight a certain level of opponent, but then it seems like Eddie wants to build him back up, and it's kind of not meshing well. You know what I mean? But I would me personally, I say just wait for the Wilder fight.
Yeah. Clock is ticking, Dave. Will they find an opponent for August, or will they just have to wait for this big fight in Saudi, man? What would you do if you were Team Joshua?
I think they wait. I think he's very vulnerable. Things haven't changed much. They haven't improved in his camp, with all the changes. And he's one of these guys that I don't think another loss is something he can take. If he takes another loss, I think that's it for him. He's got to go into broadcasting or modeling or acting. So I think the safe bet is to wait for the big payday.
Yeah. Lyndon, I have to say, I kind of agree with Dave here. What do you think? Do you think he should wait, or do you think they're going to get this fight in August for him?
No, I agree. I don't think he fights again before the Wilder fight. I think he waits and look, it's smart. I mean, no matter who you fight, there's always a risk involved that the unforeseen could happen. So with the amount of money being offered for that fight, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saudis don't, maybe step in and say, hey, we don't want anything before the big card in December, whatever it is. So, and the other issue also is Wilder. I mean, he hasn't been active either. There's been any mention about what he's doing, because he's had one round since Fury stopped him. What was it, 2 years ago, whatever it was. Before that, he hadn't fought for almost 2 years before that as well. So he's got to come into calculations as well. But as far as Joshua, look, he's never been the most active fighter. I mean, he does fight once a year or whatever it is. But yeah, I think if they're smart, he's already had the fight early this year. I would say stay out of it till the end of the year. Don't jeopardize a massive fight, a massive payday. And yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if he took that August fight or even September, whatever it might be.
Gotcha. All right, I want to wrap the show up with this last topic, and this is a fight that unfortunately I don't think we're going to be able to see here in the United States, but we'll probably have to catch it on YouTube or something. And this is the rematch between Joshua Franco and Kazuta Ioka. And this fight was a barn burner, the first one. It was in Japan. The second one's going right back to Japan. I thought Franco won the fight. A lot of people thought Franco won the fight, but the fight ended up being a draw. Once again, you know, Franco's going back into hostile territory where the crowd is going to be cheering against him. Anything Ioka does, you know, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt from the crowd. It could sway the judges. Who knows? But let's talk about this fight, D-Style. Do we see a different outcome, or does Ioka finish the job and get it done more clearly this time instead of having it go to the scorecards and being a draw? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry about that. I was very confident Ioka was going to get the job done the first time, and that was a tough fight.
Yes.
I mean, he gave Ioka everything he could handle, and most feel that Franco should have won that fight, right? So, look, they're going to do the rematch. Obviously, we have to take into consideration the fact that it's in Japan. So, whether we like it or not, there's going to be some favorability, more than likely, for the Japanese fighter in this case, that being Ioka. But taking that equation out, I just have a sense or a feeling that I just think Ioka's going to take it this time, right? I think he's going to, obviously, he's got to deal with the volume of Franco and the hand speed of Franco. He's going to have to find a way to deal with that. But I think Ioka will work his timing in. I think he'll catch him with some counters, and I think he'll hurt Franco this time. Because, I mean, how many rounds is Franco really going to go? 24 rounds and not get hurt by Ioka? Like, I just think it's going to happen at some point. And I think Ioka wins a very tough, probably controversial fight. I think these guys are always going to have a close fight, in my opinion. And then maybe we get that Ioka-Nakatani fight. I don't know if Ioka at this point is ready for Nakatani, despite all the banter I did with Calix, but that's we'll worry about that another day. But this is going to be a tough fight. I am extremely disappointed that nobody. The Zone charges $25 a month in the U.S., right? And you're not going to give me this fight. ESPN Plus isn't going to give us this fight. All this money that we pay as boxing fans to all these platforms, and nobody's going to pick up the fight. I don't care. Like, don't hire commentators. Play it in Japanese. I don't care. I don't watch it for the commentators anyway. Just let me watch the fight, right? For those that are wondering, hey, how can I watch it? Well, hopefully Mikey Garcia will do the hookup. Last time Mikey was on Instagram live with his phone out, and everybody was on his Instagram watching the fight. So I guess the Mikey Garcia Boxing Network on Instagram is through, I don't know if he has an iPhone or what, but that's going to be the go-to, I guess. And speaking, we're just talking about Golden Boy. How do you lose Franco, bro? Like, what happened? Like, every time I turn around, they lose a fighter. So here's the thing. So you're telling me you have Franco, right? And you loan him out to Top Rank during the pandemic to fight Maloney, not once, not two, but three times. So your dude got not one, not two, but three paydays. You didn't have to pay him. Top Rank paid him 3 times. And then your guy's in position to fight the head honcho of the division, Gallo Estrada, and you put up $130,000 at the purse bid, and your guy's going to get 30%? That was abysmal, bro. And that would have been a huge fight on the Zone. And so, like, I answered my own question. Why is Franco no longer with Golden Boy? Well, we know why, right? That's why. Because and then that same month, by the way, Austria just bought like this multi-million-dollar home, by the way. I mean, like, the timing couldn't have been worse with this guy, right? It's just, I'm just saying. Look, really quick before I let anybody else go, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button. A lot of you forget to hit the like. Hit the like. It helps support the channel. It helps with the algorithm and all that. Help us get to, for those listening on the archive, to that coveted 100 likes. Okay, it's always appreciated, right? And also, just going to plug it in for them in case, for you guys, just subscribe to the Boxing Deep Dive. He has a great channel over there. Make sure you guys subscribe. Subscribe to the Hardcore Casual Base the Kid, and subscribe to the Shoeshine Boxing here on YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe to that and hit the like.
Gotcha. Dave, do you think Franco got a raw deal last time, and do you think he can right the wrong?
Yeah, I definitely think Ioka got the lucky break, and who's not getting a lucky break again is boxing fans this weekend, because it's absolute travesty that we had to watch such a dynamic fight from the vantage point of an IG live in vertical mode. You know, like come on, I don't want to see a world championship fight, a fight of this caliber again through the vantage point of someone's shitty Wi-Fi or internet connection in Japan. That's a travesty. So that being said, man, Joshua Franco, he's really got to come through this weekend and take away. There's no one's getting knocked out in this fight. This is that's what I love about these smaller weight classes, is you get 12 solid rounds of action. Joshua Franco's got to pull away 8 to 4 rounds to not come up with the draw again. And I'm finding that a very hard task to do. I actually think that Ioka, from the experience of fighting Joshua Franco and being with his hometown crowd and having the judges' favors, I think Ioka is going to pull this one out finally. And it's going to be close, but again, because of the advantage he has with his hometown crowd and having the judges in his corner, and the fact that no one is televising this fight to American audiences, so the scorecards can be even wider. I think that Ioka is going to pull away this one and get a clear victory on Saturday.
Okay. What do you think, Lyndon? Going with Ioka?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'm with you guys. I can't believe this fight is not televised anywhere. I think it's ridiculous, and it should be a really, really good fight. I do agree that Franco probably a little bit underestimated last time. I think he actually won the fight, but I think in Japan this time, Franco just tends to be in controversial fights as well, doesn't he? Of course, we all remember the fight with our man Andrew Maloney. We won't let that one rest, by the way. The second fight I'm talking about. But no, I think in this instance, I think Ioki over there in Japan gets the job done and wins another close decision. But yeah, Franco will have to pull something out big to get the win over there. So I'm going to stay with Ioki for the close but unanimous decision win.
Base, does Franco need a knockout here? Can he get a decision in Japan?
No, do you know what? He could get a decision. I'm not gonna slate the Japanese judges that harshly. Ultimately, I think the issue is when it comes to different places around the world, as we've seen different judges score based on different criteria. Now, the first fight, I know a lot of people thought Franco won that, but actually, when I watched it, I managed to see it from a better view. There was a YouTube where someone was actually recording from the crowd. So you saw a nice elevated angle of the fight, and I actually did score it a draw. So I can see how that obviously did, how they got to that card, the two of the judges. Franco, I think the issue with him in the first fight was that he was a good front runner, but remember, he'd been out of the ring for I think like 15 months prior to that. Naturally bigger guy, was obviously dropping a lot of weight, and it was the first time doing that weight cut. This time he hasn't been out of the ring as long. He's obviously got more time sort of back in the gym, staying ready. So while Ioka can, he is very good at making adjustments, but I feel like probably his peak and his prime was after the Tanaka fight. I feel like since then he hasn't really looked as dynamic. So no, I think Franco will take it on this occasion. Let's not forget, in the first fight, Ioka had to get 2 draw cards for majority decision draw. It wasn't a split decision. It was a majority decision draw, which means that Franco got the other card. It's not going to be 3 Japanese judges because it's a world title fight. So in that aspect, I actually do think that Franco's he's gonna take the belt this time. He's gonna get the decision over there. Hard fought fight, very very close contest, and I still think Ioka is a tremendous talent, but he's a little bit. Yeah, he's sort of coming to that back stretch. And I also just saw, funny enough, something on Twitter saying that he got, and they've only just brought it out now apparently, that in his the last fight they had, his urine sample contained traces of marijuana, cannabis. Now, they have a very strict policy on all things recreational or otherwise, especially cannabis. They don't agree with it at all in Japan. So I don't know if that's going to yield any adverse issues with this fight. Maybe him necessarily getting stripped and only Franco being able to win the belt on the night. I don't know how they're going to plan to that. Some stranger things have happened, but yeah. Ultimately, it's going to be a great fight. I feel he'll be better in this fight, but I think Franco will be better as well. And him just being a naturally bigger guy, he did impose a lot of his size on Ioka the first time around, didn't allow him to get into that rhythm. And I think he'll do similar this time. And yeah, I've got Franco just taking that one slightly.
Awesome. All right, guys, that'll do it. Thank you, everyone on the panel. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Make sure you come back next week on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on D-Style Boxing's channel, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.